portable refrigerators. Who needs them? Apparently me. So about a month ago, I happened to mention to my wife that it's probably time that we invested in a 12-volt portable refrigerator. We're doing a lot more car camping, or at least we plan to do even more car camping and road trips, and some other things that I could use this for. And not even 2 days later, through some serendipitous alignment of the stars, a company called NewAir reached out to me and said, hey, we've got a new product line. It's a portable refrigerator that's 48 quarts. Would you be interested in checking it out? So I was like, yes. Now, if you're not familiar with NewAir, they've been making commercial and consumer grade refrigeration and cooling products for a long time. But portable refrigeration is a little bit of a newer area for them, so it's a new product line. But they're not a fly-by-night company, and this is important. They're not a company that just popped up as a store on Amazon and is going to be gone next month. So what good is a 1-year warranty if you can't get help a year from now because the company's packed it in? So NewAir has been around a while. In fact, they've also got a 30-day no-hassle money-back guarantee on this thing. So if you just want to try it out and make sure it's what you want, you can do that without worrying that you can't return it just because you bought it. So here we are. I got this thing and I've been using it for about a month, and there's a lot about this thing that I like. You can see over here, hopefully, I've got it hooked up to my Jackery 1000 and a solar panel. We'll take a look at that in a second. Because I know a lot of people have had questions when I've done these portable power station videos before. How long can you run them on there? If you're running solar, can you pretty much run them indefinitely? How does all that work? I've done the testing for you. I'm going to share that with you in just a little bit. But let's jump into some of the basic features on this thing. It's very cool. So right off the bat, one of the things that I really like about this thing is that the lid is reversible. So you can easily pull the lid off, flip it around to the other side. So that gives you a lot more flexibility when you're packing this thing. If you need to be able to access the contents while it's packed in a tight space, it needs to be able to open a certain way. You can configure that the way that whatever way works for you. I'm always impressed when a company comes up with multiple uses for things. That's one of my big things. So they've got actually a bottle opener here integrated into the side. Now there's an optional panel here where you can buy an optional battery pack that fits in there, and then you can charge this directly through this port via solar panel if you don't have something like this. But we'll get into this, as I said, in a little bit. But it runs on an LG compressor, and that's really important for me because this thing is super quiet. Now, I'm an extremely light sleeper, and anything that goes into my car that has to run at night has to be quiet, or it'll keep me up all the time, especially if it's something that kicks on and off, like a compressor for a refrigerator. I can tell you this thing is whisper quiet. I was really delightfully surprised. This is not a loud compressor at all. And that was something that was really, as I was researching these originally, something that I was very concerned about. Now, NewAir says that this is 45 decibels when the compressor is running. I clocked it in at 55 decibels on my phone, but I don't know how accurate that is. What I can tell you is that this will not keep me up at night. It is extremely quiet. And when it comes on, it doesn't clank on like some refrigerators do. That was also something I was worried about, because you just never know until you get your hands on one. But this thing actually does a really quiet ramp up. You almost don't even notice it. So it makes it something that's really not going to bother you in a tight, quiet space if you're a light sleeper. And that was really important to me. Now, some of the other stuff that I like about this, it is full dual zone. So you can treat this as a refrigerator freezer, or you can make it all a freezer or all a refrigerator, or put the freezer on the big side and the refrigerator on the small side. You can do whatever you want, but it's dual zone. And then it's got these removable baskets. So if you have to get something on the bottom, you can just pull the whole basket out if you want, close the door, rummage through your stuff and put it back. But it makes getting your stuff a lot easier. It also protects the inside so you don't crack it by dropping a can down in there. You can see it's got a drain plug on that side. They've got all kinds of stuff in here. They've got actually a cutting board integrated into the top, which is kind of cool. I'm not sure how often I'll use that, but it's nice to know that it's there. The other big thing is this thing is 40 pounds, and this is pretty typical. Anything with a compressor is going to be relatively heavy, but it's 40 pounds, maybe 41 pounds empty. So if you load this thing up with a bunch of soft drinks and frozen food, you're easily looking at 65, 70 pounds, which is getting up there. And I'm not 25 years old anymore, so I don't want to be lugging this thing around if I have to go from point A to point B. So this thing has an integrated telescoping handle that you can pop out. It's got a nice foam coating on there with wheels in the back. but I really like the fact that I don't have to break my back to move this thing from point A to point B when it's fully loaded. Let's take a quick look at how the user interface works. I'm going to put this in a darker location in my car so you can see more clearly on camera how it works, but it's very simple. All right, the controls on this thing are pretty straightforward. First of all, over here you see there's a little USB connector here if you're looking for a quick USB port and you want to top off your phone. But to basically wake up the display by hitting one of the buttons here, it kind of brightens up. And then if I start controlling the temperature, you can see I can adjust the temperature. Now this is the larger side. This is the what I call a refrigerator side. So that's the refrigerator, that's the freezer side. So this can go up to like 68 degrees Fahrenheit and down to -6 Fahrenheit. So I usually keep the refrigerator on about 40 degrees. And then if I hit the sprocket here, it switches over to the freezer side. And you can run this freezer side on both compartments, or you can do any combination of it. So if you want the bigger side to be freezer, you can do that. If you want both sides to be freezer, you can do that. So I'm going to just set this to 0, and then that'll lock that in. I'm currently in eco mode here. Once this stops blinking, I can switch from eco mode to max mode. So I just keep it in eco, especially if I'm running off battery, and I let it go. It'll manage itself. You can see I've got this set on low right now, so this is protection for your car battery. I'm actually running this off the car right now. So yeah, anyway, so that's how that works. You can set that between low, medium, high as far as a cutoff to save your car battery. So one of the other major areas of testing that I did on this, because I did some videos on these portable power stations with these solar setups here, and people were asking on those videos, hey, if I have a 12-volt portable fridge, can I run them off of a power station? How long will they run? What if I connect solar to that? Well, let's go answer those questions for you right now. All right, I've made some assumptions here about how we're going to run this refrigerator, at least in a typical scenario. So I'm assuming that the fridge is running on battery alone for 16 hours. So that's nighttime, time when the sun is not high enough in the sky to even if it's early evening or very early morning where you don't have enough sun to really generate any solar input. So I'm assuming about 8 hours of actual runtime while it's on the battery with the solar input. So you're hopefully getting a net gain in the charge of the battery. Now some of the input variables here are obviously depending on which type of power station we're using, it will have a rated capacity stated in watt hours. So of the 3 units that I have to test with, these are their respective watt hours capacity. And the device total hourly draw number, that's calculated based on running the NewAir fridge in freezer mode with the refrigerator side at 40 degrees Fahrenheit and the freezer side at 0 degrees Fahrenheit. So in that configuration, it draws 400 watt hours over a 24-hour period. So I just averaged that out, so I get 16.7 watt hours. And what you'll see is that based on the capacity of the unit, when running in freezer mode, I get 2.5 days of total possible runtime out of the Jackery 1000, a day and a half out of the Opus 600, and only 0.7 days out of the Rockpals 300. Now you think that 0.7 doesn't quite get it, but if you look at what that is in hours, it's 16.8 hours. And remember, we're only assuming that the fridge is running on battery alone for up to 16 hours. So if that holds true, you could actually get away with using a Rockpals 300 to run this fridge in fridge freezer mode for this kind of period, and it would sustain itself for as long as you were able to recharge the battery sufficiently on solar time. So how much time is required for that? Well, if you have a single panel and you're averaging 85 watts of input per hour, so that's 85 watt hours, your net input based on the energy consumption here that we have already calculated is 68.3 watt hours. So one panel will take you approximately 3.9 hours to recharge based on an average input of 85 watts. Now, if you obviously get a little bit higher input than that from your panel, you will get lower recharge time. If you are able to add a second panel, and keep in mind, this is probably not an option on the Rockpals 300 and maybe even on the Opus 600 because it only has a maximum input of 100 watts. But on the Jackery 1000, it is capable of handling 200 watts input. And so if 2 panels averaging 85 would give me 170 watts input for 2 panels. And so that would reduce my recharge time to 1.7 hours. Now this time is time to recharge the energy consumed by the NewAir refrigerator in 16 hours of battery time running. And then the 8 hours, I'm only calculating this by the net input after I've subtracted the amount of power that the refrigerator is using during this 8 hours as well. So we're getting a net gain charge on the battery. And then if we were to run the NewAir, let's say you don't need the actual freezer component, you just need it to cool things for refrigerator mode. Well, you can configure the NewAir to run at 40 degrees Fahrenheit on both sides, both the refrigerator and the freezer side. So you're dramatically reducing, in fact, you're cutting in half the amount of watt hours required to power this thing over a 24-hour period or an hourly rate. So in that case, you can see that even on the Rockpals 300, I've got a maximum possible runtime of 1.4 days, or 5 days for the Jackery 1000. So if I'm just running in a 24-hour period where I'm doing 16 hours on the battery and 8 hours on battery plus solar, it only takes me 1.7 hours to replenish the power used by the NewAir fridge when I'm running in refrigerator only mode. And if I happen to have something like the Jackery 1000 that can take 2 panels for input, and I'm getting an average of 170 watts, then I can recharge or replace the energy that the refrigerator uses during that 16-hour period in only 0.8 hours. So the takeaway is that even if you have something as low capacity as like a Rockpals 300 watt with a 280 watt hour capacity, I can still actually, with this assumption here, I can power something like this NewAir refrigerator freezer with not only just refrigerator, but also freezer mode. So that's pretty cool. So hopefully that information helped you. You can definitely do it. One thing that I will say is, even though I mentioned like the Rockpals 300, I have occasionally had issues with the Rockpals, the 300 watt model. This is their small one, handling this refrigerator at startup. So I wouldn't really recommend this, I don't think, for something like a 300 watt power station, just because of the limitation and how much watts you can draw. So I kept tripping that over voltage protection on the 300 watt unit. But if you go to anything 500 and up, you're definitely going to have no problem at all. It'll run just fine, kind of the way that I described. But anyway, if you want more information on this thing, or you want to check it out, I'll put a link to this direct from NewAir in the description below. You can easily get to it from there. If you do think this might be something you want to buy and try out with that 30-day money-back guarantee, don't forget to use the discount code that they gave me. It's REEWRAY, all uppercase, REEWRAY, and I think that's good for 10% off. And I believe the thing is probably for sale on Amazon as well. I'm not 100% sure about that, but check it out on the NewAir site first. So anyway, that's all I got for you in this video. Thanks for sticking around with me all the way to the end, if in fact you did, and I really appreciate you being here. So hope to see you in the next one. Until then, have fun out there.